Hey, the Muffin Show here. I do have to admit that this game I'm showing you is not my proudest turn. You'll notice right there. This was an 8-player versus game. I had been playing Arena since the Unicorn Pack released, and I forgot how important it is to pay attention to the turn timer in 8-player versus. So I missed out on buying a third pet, and so it makes sense that I just lost there. I do my best to try and recover. In hindsight, I probably would have grabbed the horse and just bought the other two pets after and hoped that the extra attack on those pets might help carry into this round, but this does set up the game to be a good showcase of just how strong of a stabilizer Werewolf could be. You would think that just because it only gets its bonus stats every other turn, you would think it would be like really bad on the other turns, but it has enough stats to start off with that it's just okay, even without its ability. And when it does get its ability, it's really good. It does help that I get offered 2 Snells. I will say in this pack, Snell plus the Hippocampus, the green front horse, the back's just like a eel or something. If you can get both of those, it does a really good job of stabilizing. The Hippocampus basically turns the Snells into their pre-nerf version, almost. But even with the Snell's health buff, we're still losing. Fortunately, that just enables our Snells to keep juicing up those stats. When, seeing as I had just got offered a camel, obviously this weekly is very much ox, elephant paired with camel, and or blowfish, and then in the late game, dragon scale, with werewolf being a really powerful stabilizer to get you through to late game scaling, usually with the dragon. Fortunately, all of our health buffs off of the Snells do get us a win to help stem the bleeding. We've stabilized a little bit, but with only 3 hearts, turn 5, this looks like it might be a rough game. I do see the Wendigo, the Deer Lord. I'm just going to call it Wendigo. I think Wendigo's a much cooler name. I understand there was some... I don't know what exactly it was. It was originally supposed to be called the Wendigo, but then they changed it. I'm not upset with Teamwood Games for changing it. This is a game meant for pretty much everyone, so if there's a potentially controversial name, it makes a lot of sense for them to want to change it to something less controversial. I am going to go with the Wendigo with the beta fish in front of it. I think beta fish in this pack almost makes it okay to go Wendigo. I will say, in my experience so far, this is probably the best Wendigo game that I've had, and this was the very first game of the weekly pack that I played, and it's not that crazy. I think in custom packs, and if there were things like blobfish and other good pets to faint, it would be a lot better. I think in customs, it's just going to make sacrifice builds a lot more consistent. I get quite lucky to be offered Werewolf. Of all the tier 5s in the weekly pack, Werewolf's easily the best. especially since you'll notice there, I did not intend to have my Wendigo eat my camel. I was trying to move it, but again, the dang turn timer, I wasn't paying attention to it, and right before I could shift it around so it ate something less valuable, I messed up. And this was where I was like, wow, I am really kind of sucking right now. I am just shooting myself in the foot all over the place. But, considering that I have the werewolf, I'm like, let's see if I can pull it back. Let's see if I can make this work somehow. I do opt to feed the Wendigo the ant instead of trying to get enough rolls this turn to trigger 1/1 buffs off of the Old Mouse. Old Mouse is an interesting pet. I think in general he seems pretty good. But he can be a little hit or miss. Sometimes you get a pet, or not a pet, a toy that's really not what you're looking for. It might be an interesting strategy to get him until you get a toy that you really like, and then sell him and grab a flying squirrel in customs. I think that could be a really interesting strategy, although I did see someone else said that it's a lot of fun if you, in customs, sell the griffin and then off of the treasure chest get the flying squirrel, so you just get the treasure chest reward every other turn. Our opponent also rocking a Wendigo. Of course, neither of our Wendigos triggered because it's an odd turn, but you can see so far that he's okay even on odd turns, but he's insanely strong when he gets his ability. I do see a dragon, which in this pack is, I think it's safe to say, the best scaler. The only other, fairly consistent scaler is Old Mouse. So Dragon just lets you go up on stats like crazy. And it's every time it's an odd turn, we're just annihilating our opponent. I do need to get rid of another pet besides Old Mouse. At this point, I think it's time. I got rid of the Wendigo. And I'm really just scaling the red dragon. So Dragon and his brother, the red one, forming a team. I think of the two pets, Dragon, the original Dragon, is a stronger pet just because it's one of the kind of OG scalers, and even though it's been nerfed since its initial conception, it's still pretty good. I do like Red Dragon a lot. It's just not a pet that, without Vampire Bat or the Manticore, it really just has trouble shining. Its effect is not that strong without some good pets to synergize with it. And it's an even turn, so you'll notice I haven't even leveled up the werewolf. I am still just rolling with the level 1 werewolf that I got off of a triple into a tier 5. And it is really carrying this run. It gets a little dicey sometimes on odd turns, but having the benefit of pretty much guaranteed winning on even turns, it's absolutely worth it. Especially since this weekly pack doesn't have Walrus or doesn't have walrus or scorpion, and I don't think it doesn't have the tier 6 toy pet either, so there's no way it doesn't have like cornucopia. Cornucopia can't give you peanut though, because peanut's not an actual tiered food. Yeah, but anyway, it means it's safe to have just a big unit in front. And it's just a 1v1 at this point. I have just so many stats that as long as I keep cranking the stats, at this point it hardly matters if it's an odd or even turn, because the 3 main pets that I'm rolling with are just, they have so many stats as it is that I'm basically just going to steamroll regardless. I do, instead of buying a temporary pet, since the only pet that was left was, it was a tier 6, but it was a mana pet, and I have no mana generation. It's always a good idea to put a mushroom or a honey on your last unit. It's surprising the number of games, or the number of battles you'll have where that will turn a tie into a win. Of course, it's not even close. We cruise through the dangerous early period. Dragon's a pet that once you start with it, you have to have 2 spots to start rolling stats with a dragon, and only scales 3 pets. And forces you to essentially have a 4-team build. Really a 3-team, because the dragon doesn't scale itself anymore. So the point is, when you start trying to scale with the dragon, you're vulnerable for a couple turns. So the transition, if you don't have very many hearts, will oftentimes kill you, it'll knock you out. But having the werewolf there to help stabilize half of the battles really made it a much safer transition. Here I go with a stonefish. It is, of all the pets that I could grab as a temporary fill-in, it's potentially 14 damage, 7 from its normal attack, and then 7 once it gets knocked out, which is better than any other temp pet for the build. And our opponent was getting a lot of scaling there towards the end with their own level 2 dragon, but it doesn't make a difference. And I think this game goes a long way to show that you can be having a crappy game, you can make dumb mistakes, not pay attention to the turn timer, and end up losing out on gold or accidentally eating the wrong pet, and it doesn't really... You can still recover if you're lucky enough to get an early werewolf. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe, and I see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.